Hello all, welcome to my channel. This is Shravya and now I'm going to explain about the fasting phase of glucose homeostasis. Now, without any other delay, let's get on with it. Fasting phase. It has been 16 to 48 hours since the person has had his food. So he is done with all his glycogen stores. They've depleted all them already during the early fasting phase, but he's still in need of glucose, and in order to meet the ends, the hyperglycemic hormone synthesis even more gets increased, and these will cause the activation of gluconeogenesis. Now let's just see the regulation of gluconeogenesis. The irreversible reactions of gluconeogenesis are catalyzed by 4 enzymes which are always called as key enzymes of gluconeogenesis, and they are 4 in number, which you can never forget. They are pyruvate carboxylase, phosphoenol pyruvate carboxy kinase, which is also called as PepsiK, and fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase and glucose 6 phosphatase. The first one, pyruvate carboxylase, is induced by hyperglycemic hormones which are cortisol, glucagon and epinephrine. All the 4 key enzymes of gluconeogenesis are induced by hyperglycemic hormones in common, but pyruvate carboxylase has other allosteric activator which is called as acetyl coenzyme A, which always is a very important point you cannot afford to forget. I'll highlight it and explain it later. Phosphoenol pyruvate carboxy kinase is induced by hyperglycemic hormones, and fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase is also induced by hyperglycemic hormones, but there are few other allosteric inhibitors which always inhibit fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. But we are right now in fasting phase where the dominant hand is of hyperglycemic hormones, so all these 3 factors cannot right now in the fasting phase, they cannot inhibit the fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. Let me explain why, how. Fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. We know that the hyperglycemic hormones through adenylyl cyclase increase the cyclic AMP, and the cyclic AMP will in turn activate cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, and the phosphorylation of the 2 subunits holding enzyme by the cyclic AMP dependent kinase will result in the activation of one unit and the inactivation of the other unit. The unit which gets inactivated is PFK2, and the unit which gets activated is fructose 2,6 bisphosphatase. So the net result is decrease in the level of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. Hence, it can no longer allosterically inhibit fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. And the second one, AMP. Of course, in the case of fasting, the beta oxidation dominantly occurs because hyperglycemic hormones will always increase the beta oxidation, and right now the level of ATP is increased because the ATP is derived from beta oxidation and the level of AMP is low, so it can no longer allosterically inhibit the fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. And also the AMP and fructose 2,6 bisphosphate cannot allosterically activate phosphofructokinase 1. Hence, phosphofructokinase 1 cannot bring fructose 1,6 bisphosphate from fructose 6 phosphate. Hence, also fructose 1,6 bisphosphate cannot inhibit fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase. This is how the hyperglycemic hormones protect the fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase from all those inhibitors of it during the fasting phase. And glucose 6 phosphatase, nothing special. It is induced by hyperglycemic hormones as the rest of the key gluconeogenic enzymes are being induced. And let's just move to the other slide. Yes, we know that by the means of anaerobic glycolysis we can yield 2 ATP by forming the lactate from glucose, but in order to produce one glucose molecule from 2 lactate molecules by the means of gluconeogenesis will require 6 ATP. Oh my god, the gluconeogenesis is demanding for a lot of ATP, but where are we going to get this ATP from? And the second question, I've told you that the allosteric activator of pyruvate carboxylase is acetyl coenzyme A. But where are we going to get this acetyl coenzyme A? Is it from the pyruvate dehydrogenase which is activated by insulin? No, the insulin is not present in dominant hand during the fasting stage. How on earth is this insulin now going to activate pyruvate dehydrogenase and bring acetyl coenzyme A from the pyruvate now? No, acetyl coenzyme A cannot be formed from the glycolysis right now. Then what is the source of acetyl coenzyme A? Yes, both the sources of ATP and also the acetyl coenzyme A is the beta oxidation of fatty acids. This is exactly why the beta oxidation of fatty acids happen along with the gluconeogenesis during the fasting phase 16 to 48 hours after the person has his food. Let's just discuss about beta oxidation of fatty acids for a while now. Yes, I've displayed the picture I've shown in the first phase right now again with little more amount of information. So I've said you that the acetyl coenzyme A carboxylase is the rate limiting enzyme of de novo synthesis of fatty acids, which is going to convert acetyl coenzyme A into malonyl coenzyme A. And this malonyl coenzyme A is in turn going to inhibit the rate limiting enzyme of beta oxidation, which is carnitine palmitoyl transferase type 1. Now, directly we can only see malonyl coenzyme A inhibiting the CPT1, but there are two agents supporting malonyl coenzyme A. So, the CPT1 has three enemies. First one, malonyl coenzyme A. Second one, insulin. Third one, citrate. But CPT1 has a best friend of it as well, which is long chain of fatty acids, because long chain fatty acids will inhibit the acetyl coenzyme A carboxylase and reduce the level of malonyl coenzyme A, so that not much amount of malonyl coenzyme A is causing the inhibition of CPT1. So CPT1 can remain activated and cause the beta oxidation and give the ATP and acetyl coenzyme A to the gluconeogenesis and let the glucose enter the blood circulation. Now let me explain what makes insulin and citrate decrease and long chain fatty acids increase during the fasting. Hyperglycemic hormones like glucagon and cortisol and epinephrine, which are released during the fasting state in response to the reduced glucose, will cause the activation of hormone sensitive lipase, which is present at the adipose tissue. So this hormone sensitive lipase activated by hyperglycemic hormones now act over the triacylglycerols which are present within the adipose tissue and convert the TAG into glycerol and fatty acids, and these fatty acids will now enter the circulation, and long chain fatty acids will inhibit the acetyl coenzyme A carboxylase. And we moreover know that insulin levels are actually low during the phase of fasting, and so the insulin is already low, so it can no longer activate pyruvate dehydrogenase and can no longer bring acetyl coenzyme A from the pyruvate molecule. So this acetyl coenzyme A can no longer bind to the oxaloacetate and they can no longer form the citrate. So citrate can also no longer activate the acetyl coenzyme A carboxyl, and hence the malonyl coenzyme A level gets decreased and CPT1 remains activated and beta oxidation happens, and you can get the output of acetyl coenzyme A and the ATP as well. Now let me explain what is the carnitine palmitoyl transferase using this beautiful picture. So as the picture indicates, we have cytosol and the outer mitochondrial membrane, and then the perimitochondrial space, the space present in between outer and inner mitochondrial membranes, and inner to perimitochondrial space we have inner mitochondrial membrane, and inner to inner mitochondrial membrane we have mitochondrial matrix. So the first reaction of beta oxidation is the only energy requiring step of the beta oxidation, which is the reaction catalyzed by thiokinase, which is also called as fatty acyl coenzyme A synthetase. This is a very important point to be noted. When an enzyme is having the term synthetase in its name, it must be the enzyme which will mostly, or of course will utilize the ATP to catalyze the reaction as an enzyme. So the enzyme will be located in the outer mitochondrial membrane, but the reaction happens in the cytosol. So this fatty acyl coenzyme is synthetase or thiokinase, utilizing 2 ATP molecules, will convert the fatty acid into fatty acyl coenzyme A. Now the outer mitochondrial membrane is comparatively more permeable to that of inner mitochondrial membrane. So fatty acyl coenzyme A can enter into the perimitochondrial space. But if at all the fatty acid is having its carbon number to be less than 12 to 14 carbons, then it can easily enter into the mitochondrial matrix crossing the inner mitochondrial membrane. But if at all the fatty acyl coenzyme A has its fatty acid to have its carbon number to be more than 14, it finds it's very difficult to cross the inner mitochondrial membrane. So it now will require the help of carnitine and CPT. So we have carnitine acyl transferase or carnitine palmitoyl transferase at the outer mitochondrial membrane, and this is now going to convert the fatty acyl coenzyme A into acyl carnitine using the carnitine, and the coenzyme A gets unbinded. This will in turn result in the acyl carnitine entry into the mitochondrial matrix through a transporter called as translocase, which is present within the inner mitochondrial membrane. And the acyl carnitine which has entered the mitochondrial matrix by the means of carnitine palmitoyl transferase or carnitine acyl transferase 2, which is present at the inner mitochondrial membrane, will again convert into fatty acyl coenzyme A, and then it leaves the carnitine freely. So this is the way fatty acyl coenzyme A will smartly enter the mitochondrial matrix. Now you can just get a doubt in your mind that what if the fatty acid is having the carbon number to be less than 12 or less than 14. It can easily enter into the mitochondrial matrix. It has no use with CPT1. It has no need of CPT1. It is no longer under the regulation of CPT1. So no matter if it's the fasting phase or if it is the early fasting phase, the carnitine palmitoyl transferase is not helping the fatty acyl coenzyme A of carbon number less than 12 to 14. So how is the metabolism of these kind of fatty acids regulated is what you would have been thinking about. There is no problem about it. The most commonly synthesized fatty acid and the most commonly burnt fatty acid by the means of beta oxidation is always palmitic acid. So the metabolism or the beta oxidation of fatty acyl coenzyme A's of carbon number less than 12 to 14 hardly happens. Mostly the beta oxidation of palmitic acid happens. So mostly the beta oxidation of palmitoyl coenzyme A happens. That is why sometimes carnitine acyl transferase is also called as carnitine palmitoyl transferase. That is CAT is sometimes also called as CP. So this is the explanation of the doubt you have, and this is the picture which is displaying the beta oxidation of fatty acids. This is how the bond which is present in between the C double bond O and CH2 is weakened by the series of reactions happening in the beta oxidation. Finally you get the acetyl coenzyme A, and this is the acetyl coenzyme A which is going to act as allosteric activator of pyruvate carboxylase. Do not forget, acetyl coenzyme A is the allosteric activator of pyruvate carboxylase. And then moving to the next, I'd like to talk to you about another fact, which is like acetyl coenzyme A is also an allosteric inhibitor of pyruvate dehydrogenase, so that this is not going to let the pyruvate which is present in the body convert into acetyl coenzyme A by pyruvate dehydrogenase, because again if the pyruvate dehydrogenase is not allosterically inhibited by the acetyl coenzyme A, This may result in the conversion of pyruvate into acetyl coenzyme A by pyruvate dehydrogenase, which results in the combining of acetyl coenzyme A with oxaloacetate in the early stages. This may result in the formation of citrate, and the citrate will in turn cause the activation of acetyl coenzyme A carboxylase. This again disturbs the CPT activity. So this is why the acetyl coenzyme A will allosterically activate the pyruvate carboxylase and inhibits the pyruvate dehydrogenase. So the level of acetyl coenzyme A is going to decide which side the cycle goes to. And this is how I wind up the fasting, and thank you.